All right, so close your eyes for a second and imagine this. Mecca, 622 CE. Now, forget the images of the modern city you might have in mind, because we're talking about a very different time and place, right? A city grappling with a brand new message, one that was turning everything upside down. Now, picture the early followers of Prophet Muhammad, the very first Muslims, facing incredible persecution just because they dared to believe differently. Torture, being driven out, they were really put through the fire. And it's in the midst of this intense pressure that they make a monumental decision to seek refuge, to find safety across the Red Sea in a place called Abyssinia, what we know today as Ethiopia.
Yeah, a real turning point. And that's exactly where our deep dive takes us today, into the heart of this pivotal event, the very first Hijra in Islamic history. You know, Hijra means migration, a journey seeking refuge. And this particular Hijra, it's a story about how Islam first stepped foot on the African continent. A story about courage, about faith, about that deep-seated human desire to be able to practice your beliefs freely.
It wasn't just about changing locations, was it? I mean, this was a huge shift, a seismic event that, as you said, propelled Islam beyond its Arabian origins. It set it on the path to becoming the global faith it is today. And what's even more amazing is that Abyssinia, this already well-established African kingdom, became the first non-Arab nation to welcome and essentially embrace Islam by offering the sanctuary.
Exactly. You know, often when we think about the spread of Islam, we think of expansion through conquest. But here, right at the very beginning, we see a different story, a story about seeking refuge and finding acceptance.
So for our listeners who, like us, are always eager to get to the heart of the matter, to really understand the why and the how of this pivotal moment, our mission today is pretty clear, right? Why Abyssinia? What was the journey like for those early Muslims? And what happened when they arrived? What are the lasting implications of this decision to seek refuge in Abyssinia?
Big questions, yeah. But luckily, we've been digging deep into some fascinating historical accounts. I think you'll agree that one particularly insightful resource is this YouTube video titled How Islam Came to Africa, Ethiopia, the First Hijra of Islam, A Tale of Faith and Refuge. It's from the Tales of Ethiopia channel. And it really brings the whole narrative to life.
It really does paint a vivid picture. So to get into this, I think we first need to set the scene in Mecca. You know, understand the context of what was happening there, the situation that led to this decision to migrate in the first place. So maybe you can walk us through that. What was life like in Mecca at that time?
Sure. So picture Mecca, not just as a city, but as a powerful hub. It was a center of trade, a place where people from all over the region came together. But it was also deeply rooted in its own polytheistic traditions. This is where the Kaaba, a sacred site for many different beliefs, was located. And the dominant force in Mecca was the Quraysh tribe. They controlled the Kaaba, they controlled the trade route, they were the power brokers. Now, into this environment comes Prophet Muhammad with a radically different message. His message centered on the belief in one God, Allah, and it called for peace and submission to this single divine authority. And this was a direct challenge to the existing order.
A real shakeup of the status quo.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about different beliefs, right? It was about power, about who held the authority, both religious and political.
Absolutely. And the Quraysh, they weren't just going to sit back and watch their entire system be challenged. So they reacted, and their reaction was harsh. They saw Islam as a threat, as something that could undermine their power and influence, and they lashed out.
The video really highlights the brutal persecution that the early Muslims faced. It wasn't just disagreement. It was ridicule, physical abuse, even economic isolation. They were ostracized, pushed to the fringes of Meccan society simply because of their faith.
Yeah, the video gives the example of Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, who later became the first caliph, as someone who endured this persecution. And just to clarify for our listeners, a caliph is a successor to the Prophet Muhammad as the leader of the Muslim community. So even these key figures, people who would go on to shape the future of Islam, they were facing incredible hardship just for believing.
It really humanizes the story, doesn't it? These weren't just names in a history book. They were real people facing real danger for what they believed. So with things escalating in Mecca, Prophet Muhammad had to make a decision, right? He needed to find a safe haven for his followers, a place where they could practice their faith without fear of persecution. And that's where Abyssinia comes into the picture. What made Abyssinia, a Christian kingdom, stand out as a potential refuge.
Well, the video makes the point that this wasn't a random choice. It was a strategic decision. Prophet Muhammad was known for his wisdom and his foresight, and in choosing Abyssinia, he was tapping into something that was already well established. Abyssinia had a reputation for religious tolerance. The video even uses the term progressive policies to describe them, which is pretty remarkable for the 7th century.
Progressive back then. I like that. So it wasn't just about finding any safe haven. It was about finding a place that was known for its openness to different beliefs.
Exactly. And this wasn't just out of the goodness of their hearts. Abyssinia, by being this welcoming power, they were also making a statement. They were setting themselves apart from others in the region.
A smart move, politically and morally. And the video also talks about the ruler of Abyssinia at that time, King Ashama ibn Abjar. He was known for his justice and his compassion. So it sounds like Prophet Muhammad knew that his followers would be treated fairly under King Ashama's rule.
Yeah. The prophet was a shrewd judge of character. He understood people, and it seems like he had a good sense of who King Ashama was. So the decision was made, and in the year 615 CE, the First Hijra took place. A group of Muslims, men, women, and children, set sail for Abyssinia.
The video mentions it was around 80 people, which is a considerable number considering the risks involved. These weren't just individuals, they were families, entire households uprooting their lives and venturing into the unknown.
And among them were some very important figures in early Islam. We already mentioned Abu Bakr, but there was also Sumayya, one of the first martyrs in Islam. And leading this group was Jafar ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and one of the earliest converts to Islam. He had a huge responsibility, not just to guide them safely to Abyssinia, but also to be their spokesperson, to explain their situation to King Ashama and plead for his protection.
Imagine that journey. The video really emphasizes the perilous nature of crossing the Red Sea. It wasn't a pleasure cruise. Unpredictable weather, the dangers of being at sea for weeks, it must have been terrifying. And on top of that, the constant fear of being caught by the Meccans. The stakes were incredibly high.
You really get a sense of their determination, their unwavering belief in what they were doing. They were risking everything, their lives, their families, everything, all driven by their faith and the hope of finding safety. This was more than just a physical migration, it was a test of their spiritual strength as well.
And after weeks at sea, facing all those challenges, they finally arrived on the shores of Abyssinia. Can you imagine the relief? Just stepping onto solid ground after all that, knowing they had made it. But what happened then? What kind of reception did they receive?
Well, according to the video, King Ashama was already aware of their situation. Word had spread about the persecution they were facing in Mecca, and when they arrived, Jafar, as the representative, met with the king. He presented a letter from Prophet Muhammad himself, outlining their plight and formally requesting asylum. It was a direct appeal for protection.
And then comes this incredible moment. Jafar, to really connect with the king, decided to recite verses from the Quran. But not just any verses. He chose the ones that spoke about Mary and Jesus, figures that were revered in Christianity as well.
It was a brilliant move. He wasn't trying to overwhelm the king with something completely foreign. Instead, he was highlighting the common ground between Islam and Christianity, emphasizing the shared values and respect for these important figures. It was a way of building bridges, of saying, look, we're not so different.
A brilliant example of interfaith dialogue in action, even all the way back then. So how did King Ashama respond?
Well, the video emphasizes that he was deeply moved by their story. He recognized the injustice they had suffered, and he was impressed by Jafar's eloquence and the message of Islam. And so he made a decision that would have a huge impact on the course of history. He granted them royal protection. He offered them asylum in Abyssinia. It was a bold move, a testament to his compassion and his commitment to justice.
What a powerful moment. It's incredible to think about the ripple effects of that decision, how it shaped the lives of those early Muslims and the future of Islam itself.
Yeah, and the story doesn't end there. The video goes on to describe how the Meccans, they weren't happy about this. They sent emissaries to Abyssinia demanding that the Muslims be extradited, basically handed back to them. But King Ashama, he stood his ground. He refused to give them up. He upheld his commitment to justice and religious freedom, even when facing pressure from a powerful outside force.
That's what makes this story so remarkable. It's not just about escape, it's about finding refuge in a place that genuinely upholds those values of tolerance and protection.
Absolutely, and the word got out. The video explains how news of King Ashama's protection spread quickly, and more Muslims, not just from Mecca, but also from Medina, began to seek refuge in Abyssinia. It became a vital sanctuary for the early Muslim community, allowing them to grow and thrive in a safe environment.
And it wasn't just about survival. As they settled in Abyssinia, they started to build a life there. The video mentions the construction of mosques, centers of worship and community life.
It specifically highlights the mosque in Nagash, which is believed to be one of the oldest mosques in Africa. This wasn't just a temporary stop. They were putting down roots, laying the foundations for a lasting presence.
Yeah, it's like they found fertile ground in Abyssinia. They were able to practice their faith freely, build their communities, and contribute to the cultural landscape of their new home.
And the video really drives home the point that this First Hijra wasn't just a footnote in history, it was a turning point. It marked the beginning of Islam's expansion beyond the Arabian Peninsula. It was the first step in a journey that would eventually see Islam spread across the globe. And it also had a profound impact on the relationship between Ethiopia and the Islamic world. It set a precedent for tolerance, for coexistence, for mutual respect that has really endured over the centuries. That's something pretty remarkable considering the complexities of history and the conflicts that have arisen in other parts of the world.
It's a testament to the power of finding common ground, of recognizing shared values, even across different faiths. The video also provides some really interesting context about Ethiopia itself, and it's fascinating how much depth this country has, historically speaking.
Yeah, the video calls it the land of the origin of humanity, which immediately piques your curiosity, right? And that's because some of the earliest hominid fossils have been found there. You're talking about the cradle of civilization.
It's mind-blowing to think about that. And it also has this rich and ancient Christian heritage.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about some of the oldest Christian sites in the world being located in Ethiopia. The Church of St. Mary of Zion, which according to tradition houses the Ark of the Covenant, that's an incredibly significant site. And the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, it's a cornerstone of Ethiopian culture and identity going back centuries. And then you have those incredible rock-hewn churches of Lalibela carved directly into the mountainsides. It's a testament to their architectural skills and their devotion.
The video also talks about periods of great prosperity, like under the Solomonic dynasty, which shows that Ethiopia has a long history of being a thriving, sophisticated civilization.
But of course, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. The video acknowledges the challenges they've faced, the invasions, the internal conflicts, the struggles for independence. But there's also this theme of resilience, of bouncing back. They successfully resisted the Ottoman Empire. They fought against Italian colonialism. There's a real spirit of determination there.
And even today, Ethiopia continues to play a vital role in Africa. It's one of the oldest independent nations on the continent, strategically located and actively involved in the African Union. It's a nation with a rich and complex history, and the story of the First Hijra is a really important part of that tapestry.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back to our listeners and highlight the key takeaways here. What's the aha moment, the thing that makes you go, wow, I didn't know that? For me, it's the fact that a Christian kingdom provided refuge for early Muslims. It challenges our assumptions about historical narratives and shows us that even in times of great tension, there's potential for understanding and cooperation across religious divides.
It's a reminder that history is full of surprises and that sometimes the most unexpected alliances can emerge. And it makes you think, right, how does this story resonate with the world today? With all the conversations we're having about migration, about religious freedom, about international relations, this ancient story from the 7th century, it suddenly feels very relevant.
Absolutely. It's a story about seeking refuge, about finding common ground, about upholding values of tolerance and justice. And those are themes that continue to resonate, to challenge us, to inspire us, even today. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just about the past, it's about the present and the future as well.
Some food for thought for sure. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.